And here we have the global CMO and the head of data analytics at WNS, Mr. Akhilesh Ayer. Can I request you for the keynote address, please?
Thank you so much, Omkar. I have the unenviable task of following Dr. Indu Shahani and speaking before Dr. Raskar. So, please wish me luck. But very warm welcome to all of you. I would like to thank Dr. Indu Shahani for giving WNS the opportunity to be part of this wonderful initiative. So, a big thank you to you. My compliments to the ISDI's team, Radha, Siddharth, Dr. Mukesh, for pulling this fantastic event. And, before we came, we had no understanding or perspective of what this will look like. But I must say, I'm extremely pleasantly surprised and almost overwhelmed at looking at how you have kind of built this program. So my compliments to you. And thank you to Dr. Ramesh, Prateek, and everybody else from the MIT Media Lab for bringing this together. Right now, before I start, let me get on to the job. We do analytics for a living as a company and provide services to a number of corporates. We have not done so much for the government, but something I want to pick up on how analytics is used today for service, not public service, but customer service. Can I have a small clipping?
Hello, I'm just after semi-skimmed milk.
Your search for semi-skimmed milk returned 0 results.
You don't sell milk?
Your search for milk returned 52,256 results. Your top hit, milk of magnesia.
No.
Milk floats of yesteryear.
No.
This milk-themed family wall planner.
No, sorry, I'm just looking for, normal milk.
Couldn't find what you were looking for.
That's what I'm saying. I couldn't find it, so I'm asking you if you could...
Advanced search.
All right, let's do this. Keyword, now, go.
Yeah, okay. Milk.
Please narrow your search by using one of the following filters. Kayaks, packet 12, self-cleaning, breakfast and condiment.
That one. Breakfast.
One result.
Milk, skimmed semi.
Semi-skimmed milk. That's what I first asked you for.
It's milk skimmed semi.
With that humbling note, this is not one of our customers, I must put the disclaimer now, but we do this for a living. Every customer, and you must have heard this a lot, is an individual and a segment in their own. And we run all kinds of analytics to figure out what that individual wants, likes, prefers, at what time, in what channel, things like that. And then help our clients to provide offers, and hopefully they pick that offer. Now think about that. If we are able to replicate that for the government, that would be a wonderful thing, right? So I'm hoping that today's session brings about some such innovation that would allow us to find solutions in that light, right? But the theme of my talk is big data and good governance. What is big data, right? Many people have different definitions. There are 5 V's by which we would typically characterize. First is volume, lots and lots and lots of data. Do you know how much time it takes now for data to double? The size of the data to double in the world? I'll give you a gift. Sorry? 11 months? Pretty close, it's 1.2 years. And I bet next year when we stand here, this number would be much, much lower, right? So things have changed. Volume of data, velocity of data, the speed at which data gets collected and stored nowadays with devices, things like that, almost instantaneous, real time. Variety of data, different kinds of data from different data sources all coming together. Sometimes our heads start spinning, not knowing what to do with this data. There are 2 other dimensions, which is transforming big data to good data, which is veracity. So the data needs to be good data. It should be actionable, meaningful, things that we can use, finally value. There needs to be an economic value to the data. Now when you look at this whole amount of data, and then we have researchers working in astrophysics, agriculture, astronomy, things like that, mind-boggling array of data available. And in parallel, we have tremendous progress that we have seen in technology, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, things that Dr. Shahani alluded to indirectly. That is making a very heady mix, a cocktail, a concoction that can really transform the world, literally. Right? And if we can use all of this data for the public good, we would be able to impact the billions that we are aiming to do, right? It also brings about political accountability, generates economic value, and improves the the quality of public and government services, right? So the big question is, how can we use data, corporates such as us, through our strengths for good governance? This could be one way. Some of us have tried it, the shortcut. Doesn't work very well. But the truth is, data can work for everyone, right? If data can be put for cutting edge use for our corporations and customers, we can certainly use it for government initiatives. Today we have tools and technologies to gather data and share data in huge volumes. We can process and analyze data at unimaginable speed. We have intelligence built on top of that to predict and have cognitive computing to estimate things. Let me give you an example. I've got a computer here, by the way. That gentleman there, you sir, with the coat and white, which part of India do you belong to? Eastern part. And where did you come today from? Which city? And you came this morning? Is your name Arindam by any chance? Yes or no? Artificial intelligence at work. Or witchcraft. Guys, I know Arindam very well. So, that said, so as I said, data can work for everybody. But how have we been using data, right? Historically, how have our plans been, or at least we would like to joke it to be as such. We shout for help. Things have changed, and they are changing. Let me give you an example of New York City. Some of you might have visited or lived there. Its Civic Intelligence Center aggregates and analyzes data from across agencies and addresses crime, public safety, quality of issues. It's a booming metropolis, right? And they generate huge amounts of data. Dr. Raskar mentioned that, well, yes, it's developed and they speak about driverless cars. The real potential for it to be used is in perhaps Nasik, but they do a phenomenal job. In addition, they have made the data open, right? So millions of people, or hundreds of them at least, people like students sitting in this room, have used that data and created apps for public good, right? And some of them are fantastic, including solving the New York taxi problem, which is, I never thought could be solved, but only a whistle worked. But some apps have been developed which would solve for this. Or take the example of Singapore, an extremely well-organized city. They have put a massive 680 data sets in the public domain, and there are 150 web applications and apps that the public have developed on that data to provide better service, right? Singapore runs its city like a well-clocked machinery. Their water distribution system, for example, runs at some 92-93% efficiency. What it means is that only 7% water is leaked, right? Which is very, very high. Trust me, India runs at 60% efficiency in most well-managed cities. And the only reason they don't take 93 to 94 is because the cost of increasing that 1% is more than the cost of actually the water, right? So there is an economic balance. But look at how they've used data to do intelligent stuff, right? Coming back from New York and Singapore, as a developing nation, the cusp of breakthrough progress, what are the platforms we have? Are we ready? The good news is we are seeing good signs here, right? through its Digital India program. There are 85 government agencies which have put a massive 12,000 data sets in the public domain for us to use and do whatever we would want to. Population census, water and sanitation, health and family wear. Data.gov.in is the link, I'm sure all of you know it. It's operational for about 5 years, but phenomenal potential, and some of the public good that we would want to do, we could bank on that kind of data for us to draw insights and do things. Aadhaar, all of us know about it. It's the world's largest ID and biometric program. And it's been put to phenomenal use, right? Subsidy targeting is one example, which has been done so well. And it's a huge cost to the government exchequer, subsidies. And if they're wasted, it's for a country like ours, it's almost criminal. So they've done a very good job of using Aadhaar to curtail subsidy losses and then retarget the save money for other needy people, right? So yes, India has made some very interesting strides and good progress. And as Dr. Shahani mentioned, a lot of things can be done in India. We could add to your request to Prime Minister Modi on doing something here. The next step really is how big data can be amplified for better governance, so to speak, using demography and economics. The middle bucket is really interesting. Make it look good. Historically, that's been at least some of our experiences when we deal with agencies and things like that. But to talk seriously, data interoperability and data triangulation is extremely important, right? So when we have this loads and loads of data, it's extremely important to have a version of truth that makes sense, that we can identify. In our world, we say customer 360 and one view of the customer. So we need to really know that the version of data, I spoke about veracity of data, extremely, extremely important, right? So cross-verification of data important, pulling in information from diverse sources and making sense of it extremely important. Opening up the channels for secure data sharing is extremely important. This will form the basis for us to do anything else, right? It's an extremely laborious and tedious process, but it's actually not that hard, right? If we have to use big data for good governance, there's technology, there's analytics, there's legal, there's cultural, and there's political challenges. To be honest, what we will do in the realm of today's agenda is tackle the first and second, by and large, in some ways. But they are relatively the easier one, especially with the caliber of people sitting in this room, right? It's the cultural and political realms which are the more difficult areas, and things take time to change there. But the good news is that the government is very aligned and trying to do its best to kind of solve this. What do we do once we have the data? Is to use it, leverage everything that is there in our arsenal, analytics, AI, simple insights generation, logical construct of thinking to solve some of these problems. And I think that's something that we will try and achieve today. But it's also the most exciting part, because I think we just don't know what the data will tell us. And there could be some very, very interesting insights that we discover, despite us actually populating the data, about things. Some good examples of how it has been done even in India, right? So I'm sure most of you have applied for passport, and if you've done that 5 years back, 10 years back, you would stand in the line in the morning, you take a leave from office, you'll go there, stand, and then you will crib in the queue. You'll talk to two people in front of you, two people behind you, talk about the length of the cube, the breadth of the cube, the indiscipline, the color of the passport, and the Indian cricket team. I don't know why, but we'll always criticize that. But things have changed now, right? The passport seva. And they have done the interoperability thing very well, right? So they use Aadhaar database to make verification less tedious, demographic, facial, and biometric mapping. They also use the CCTNS database, which is the Crime and Criminal Tracking Network and Systems, for criminal verification. They've kind of added services to it, so you can apply on your mobile device or something like that to make it easier for you. It's much more smooth now than it was 10 years back, right? Things can always be improved, but it's a very good example and something that we should give ourselves credit for having done a simple thing much better. The other area where there is improvement is actually taxation, but I'm not going to talk about that. It's a sore subject after demonetization, so I'll leave that for a later date. And, you know, while we work with big data and public data about individuals, so privacy and data security, right, extremely important. We need to have the necessary safeguards to be able to do this, have the technological backup, logical measures, physical measures, to make sure that data is separate and properly maintained. Data ownership is done, proper governance structures are maintained. Extremely important to do that. And then, that said, you know, to the extent that we use all this data for the larger good, it's great, right? While maintaining security. So we all know that Nepal was hit with an unfortunate earthquake in 2015. Many thousands lost their lives, and given the difficult terrain, it was very, very hard for relief to reach people, right? But let me give you a very small example. Ncell, which is the largest mobile operator company in Nepal, shared its data with a company called Flowminder. It is a Swedish company. And what Flowminder did is use this data to map all these people who had the Ncell mobile data at different places. And using that mapping, they found out the places where relief was most required to be given, right? So all relief work, rather than being channelized everywhere and dispersed, was targeted in specific geographical segments and areas. So it's a great, and the data was still anonymized, so individuals were not tracked. It was just the heat map of where people were and where relief was done. So that's a fantastic example, and Swedish company did it. Sweden takes privacy to a very different level. It's a humorous anecdote, but in the laundry rooms in Sweden, you cannot put cameras, even if you're trying to find somebody who's stealing clothes, because it's against data privacy. And Sweden takes public service to a very different level. I am told, and maybe I'm wrong, veracity is in doubt, but way back in 2004, you could file your tax returns by sending an SMS. In fact, the government fills the whole taxation form, and all that you need to do is say, yes, I agree or not. And then they charge 50 to 70% of your income as tax, which is understandable because they've done the most difficult job of filing the tax forms, right? So coming back, the final point that I wanted to make, so we know what big data is. We want to make sure that it is accurate, verifiable. There's enough progress that has happened in the country that it needs to be interoperable. There's one version of truth, that we need to deploy advanced analytics, right? But what is the approach we use to be able to find solutions, right? And this is where I think this conference today, I see the most value in, right? And you know, I'm hoping to be inspired completely, which I'm sure I will be, right? And this is where design thinking comes, right? And I want to give you an example of Denmark. Denmark has done some good work in design thinking. They've got an organization called MindMap. It's a government organization, and it comprises of ethnographers, designers, public policy specialists, and then they invite the common public, companies, etc., to solve for problems by asking simple questions, right? What does it feel like to start a business in Denmark? How is the experience, and what are the specific touch points when you do that in Denmark? I don't know what the answer there will be. We all know what the answer here is, but a different approach, outside-in approach, right? What will I take to design a digital platform to help the unemployed find a voluntary mentor to put them in the appropriate job, right? How can education reform be made tangible enough to spur real change in the schooling system? Things like that, right? So questions which are outside in a very different approach to solving problems, and they've addressed their waste management problems through this approach. They have addressed problems that plague inmate versus jailer relationships, for example, in Denmark, or addressing issues that plague mentally disadvantaged adults, right? So these are some very good examples where we've used design thinking, big data for good governance, right? So again, all the best for all the people who have come here today. It is indeed my pleasure and privilege to be here. A big thank you to Dr. Shahani again for inviting us. And as I said, I'm looking forward to some inspiration, and I'm sure I will get it. Thank you so much.